Good afternoon. Welcome back from lunch. I'd like to thank ITC and everybody that put this together for having me here. My name's Kevin Lane. I'm a Hoopa tribal member. I've worked for the Hoopa tribe since 1990. A lot of my presentation I was going to give was already given by the presenter before me, so I guess that's it for the day. And she was nice. I've seen her presentations in the past, so she's really nice. That's what I was going to ask too, is how many Forest Service employees are here? Oh, I can't give this presentation then. So like I said, my name's Kevin Lane, and I've worked for the tribe for some time now. I started on this project. I believe the proposal was written in 2004 or 2005. I've been a part of the forestry staff of Hoopa since then, so I sat in a lot of the IDT meetings. So the stuff that I'm going to go over, and I hope this works. His presentation outline will be stewardship development, stewardship work area, project implementation, lessons learned, and future goals. And I got to put my tablets right here because I have my notes written into it, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to read them, so I might just have to wing it. So under the development process, the tribe proposed this in 2005, 4 phases of it, and I will have to use my notes for this. And the 4 phases of this, the original proposal, everybody can hear me correct? The original proposal consisted of the following. Phase 1 consisted of 28.43 miles of roadway fuel break. That was 200 feet above and 200 feet below. All in mind, prior, when this was submitted to the Forest Service, the wilderness boundary hadn't been moved yet. So after the submission of this proposal, it went back to Congress and they actually moved the wilderness boundary further to the west down to a road line. So this was pre. Phase 2, it ended up equaling 861 acres. Phase 2 of the project was 1,716 acres, and that was a timber stand improvement. Phase 3 was 707 acres of same thing, stand improvement. They had piling and burning included. And phase 4 was 32.6 miles of fire break maintenance on top of ridgeline. So the original boundary of the wilderness was further back. This project was covered under NEPA. The original agreement, I believe, was an MOU. Correct me if I was wrong, Nolan. I know Nolan's coming up after me. It was basically, it piggybacked an agreement for prescribed fire and to use resources from the Forest Service. That's how we got this going. That vehicle was in place, so that's the one we used. It was the quickest way to get it done under TFPA. So that's the original project boundary right there. I went over all of that right there. The red line, I believe, is ancestral territory, and I do have another map up here of what the Hoopa tribal ancestral territory is. But then again, what we were talking about in a previous discussion was that they overlap. So the Karuks have ancestral territories in this area. The Yuroks not in this area, but in an area that's northwest of the reservation that's also under Forest Service land. And so I'm sure I'm going to get a little bit of grief from Leaf probably. That was pre-Megram. How this all came about was the Megram fire of 1999, which burned 138,000 acres. And it walked through that area. I believe in one day, what was it? It moved 3 to 5 miles in one day, something like that. And it was stand replacement. There are sites out here that had previous treatments prior to 1999 that those stands are still intact. So here's a fire history of the area. The square is the Hoopa Indian Reservation. The green is the Megram fire. So most recently we've had the Backbone fire. I guess that won't go back. We've had that Backbone fire that was over in here, and then we had the Corral fire in the same area. This was the Megram fire. And like I said, we've had those fires, but these fires right here, if we get a fire in here within the next few years, it's gone. There's nothing we can do except for maybe light the area that we're currently working on right now. And that's the road to keep it off the reservation, because what happens is we get lightning strikes out there all the time, and they burn, and there's no real safe place out there to conduct like direct attack on those areas. So the fallback is always to go to the reservation, while the tribe, through whether it be interior proposals, whether it be through NRCS, utilization of timber sale dollars on the reservation, we put field breaks in there and maintain those field breaks annually. So one field break might get maintenance every 3 years. It just depends on what funding's available. But on that side of the reservation, those do exist. That's why we're trying to build it on the Forest Service side as well. That's why we put the proposal in. That all goes back to Aboriginal or ancestral territories. BLM, who we do have a type of stewardship, is probably, you could actually call it one of the first stewardships that we had on the west side of the reservation, which would be over in this area here. That's been going since 1992. And we build on that one annually as well. We go out there and do different projects. Began implementation in 2008, 3 years after it was submitted. The original one had 177, the first installment had 177 acres approved in it for funding. And we started on that. Some of the barriers that we ran into was that, and it's probably typical of people starting out with the TFPA, is the specifications were pretty hard to meet with the resources that we had. We went into this thinking that, full steam, thinking that we could contract this out because we had similar type projects on the reservation that we had people come in and contract for $800 an acre, $640 per acre, same type of work. Well, when everything finally got signed, we found out from the contracting people that we couldn't contract it out. If we contracted it out, we would have to put up, and I'm sure things have changed now, we would have to put up 50% of the total of that project. And there was no way the tribe could do that, no way possible. So, like I guess any other government agency, we have high fringe rates. We have retirement, we have medical benefits, and all those things roll in there. Tribal forestry does have project crews. We hire, now we just hired, we're getting ready to hire a sudden oak death crew who will go out and do this type of work. But their costs are high, and there was no way we could do it. So the money that was put up at the beginning of all of this, and there was an additional 155 acres added into there, it wasn't enough for us to get a cost per acre done. So if we went in and said we could do it for $1,000 per acre, we couldn't come anywhere close to that, because even out of that $1,000, that's the number I'll use, the $1,000 per acre, we still had to take 20% out of that for administrative fees to pay to our own tribe to do the administrative work. And so that just, it hit us hard. But in 2013, additional funds were added. So there was a period from 2000, I think 11 and 12 is what I want to use. There was a lack of funding there. So we couldn't go do that project anymore. And even though all that money was put up front, the cost of that project was renegotiated through, I believe it was Tyrone Kelly and the tribe, to where we got paid for the services instead. So it was best value for us. And best value for, I guess, for a contractor or the Forest Service might be just that, a lower cost. But best value for us was that area is sacred to us. That's where our people go to make their medicine. That's where they go to pray. That's where their dances start. So that's basically, you could say almost where life begins. So best value for us is to have our people in there. They know what they want. And I don't really want to get off on the bad note, but just the same problems that Mescalero went through, we went through that same stuff. There was rangers in the area that felt like we didn't belong there, that wasn't, we shouldn't be doing the work. But that, after sitting down and everybody just, communicating, that all got worked out, and we went forward, and currently still working on this project. Like I said, make sure when you guys know what kind of contract you're going to use. Know what's written in there. Know how much money you have to use, where your guys' share, if you're a tribe, where your share is going to come from. Currently under the, I believe it's a participating agreement we're using right now, we do an in-kind, so there's several different types of funding the tribe can put up. We do an in-kind match of like 27%, I believe it is. So the Forest Service puts up the wages and we do the in-kind match. Like I said, it was the specifications that kind of killed us. It didn't kill us because the project's still going on and we want to complete it. But travel time, it's like an hour and a half to the sites on a daily basis. And I don't know if anybody in here has ran chainsaws before, but you could probably get 6 good hours out of an individual running a chainsaw all day. That's it. And he ain't gonna do that 5 days a week. He's gonna do that 4 days a week. So he's gonna get 24 hours of actual work time on that acre. Like I said, the fuel loading for this project, it was different. We had to fall big snags, but if there was a large woody material on the ground, we did have to separate it and we did have to pile a lot of the stuff. Like the project was covered under a CAD X, which only allowed for smaller equipment. We did take an ASV posi track, which is a small Kevlar track piece of equipment with a cutting head. Well, this area has a lot of rock in the area, so it was a high cost to the machine because it would break it down. We'd have to replace blades. So that didn't really work. So when you guys are going into the pre-planning, make sure that your NEPA covers larger equipment. That's just what I talked about. And it was at least a 60% increase in cost. Now, the other thing about, and I'm just jumping all over the place here, but the other thing about best value to us is that we've done contracts on the reservation. We still do contracts. Our council has just recently allowed outside contractors back into our area because what happened was that we allowed contractors in and were from out of the area, and some of them had ties to the cartel. And it was different cartels. It just wasn't, cartels south of the border. It was from different countries. So it's been a long time since we've been able to do something like that. Continue working with the Forest Service. We're still doing that. We still have meetings. They still contribute funds to this project. We have a schedule of when we're going to go out there and work. They'll schedule meetings with, I guess it would be potential buyers to sell product from the project areas if they're available, which would be smaller diameter trees. It could be biomass, but they've been facilitating all of those things for this. And for this area, it has one of the highest, or it used to at one time when we did the proposal, had the highest area of lightning incidents on Lower Trinity Ranger District. I don't know if that's still true. It sure seems like it with that fire map I had up there earlier. So this was last Friday I drove up into there. So, that's the fuel loading down there on the bottom. That's the snag retention, and everybody knows about fire is that if a fire goes back through there, it's just going to go from snag to snag. It'll go on the ground, but that's how it's going to get transferred back to the reservation. So we don't want it on the reservation, and if we can continue to do this work, then that really helps us. And we're still looking for these markets. There's always speculation that there's a biomass plant or a cogen plant opening up in our area. It's a high cost to get the biomass out of that area, though. The haul cost will kill you. Slopes kill you for getting that material out. My supervisor, my boss, he's on the ITC board, so I'm sure that he still works with them for doing a template. We haven't done a new TFPA for a while. I know that we still have meetings with the Forest Service. That's my contact information. And everything I missed, there's a guy who loves to talk who's going to come up after me, and he'll cover everything. Last year I gave my presentation, and he took like 2/3 of it and his time. So any questions?
What Kevin doesn't mention is he actually likes it that way.
He has to what? Oh.
You actually like it.
Yeah, I do like it. I do like it.
Any questions?
One of the social issues that we endure in our community is just not having vehicles for that intergenerational transmission of knowledge, of ethics, and values. In your guys' operational kind of structured you guys kind of address that issue in your community and make sure that youth are kind of coming up and being involved in the work?
So we have a youth internship program that they probably hold annually, but we don't normally take them out on Forest Service projects. We usually keep them on the reservation, but yes, we do teach them those things.
Is there any specific reason you don't take them on Forest Service signs? Or just-
Probably liability.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm wondering, since the inception of this project and looking at the goals, from the inception to now, was it ever in any of the NEPA or any of the discussions about long-term maintenance needs, or how that would be addressed? And is it sounds like there's been difficulty maybe keeping the funding stream to accomplish the goals. So where have those funds come from? What role has the tribe played in identifying different sources of funding to accomplish the work? I guess those are the first questions that come to my mind.
So work with Andrew Spain over here a lot, and he goes out and he finds funds for the project. Let's see, so on the tribal side, like I said, it's the in-kind portion that we put in, about 27%. Not all wages are paid by the Forest Service, so we do pay for some of those wages. That area really needs to have fire in it. And with the wilderness boundary being moved back to the west, it's really hard to get anything done out there. And we haven't sat down and done any more NEPA on that project, which we do need to, but then resources, I'll have to say this, resources are limited because the tribe has all of its projects that they have to complete, and the Forest Service, the Six Rivers National Forest, has a big forest as well, and they're limited within their staff on their districts, because I believe that you have 2 districts, correct? So a key component of it is a wildlife biologist, from my understanding, and it's just having everybody go out there and do the more in-depth NEPA on it to get it done. But really, that area really needs fire, and fire has always been a part of that. We knew that when we designed the project. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Did you get the question on the long-term maintenance? The NEPA, I think, covers some of that, but was there any other components to that question?
Well, I think the answer.
And Nolan might be able to answer that, because it is his district, the long-term maintenance portion of it. So that's that F word, the funding, that's Nolan.
Not to put you on the spot, Nolan.
Yeah, the next NEPA that we do will address a lot more than just the roadside project. So this first phase was the NEPA covered the roadside. The next phase that Kevin mentioned that got altered because of the different designations from the wilderness boundary adjustments changed some of the way that we were looking at it. But we are definitely looking at maintenance of what's going on, what we're planning on doing up in that part of the world for protection of the reservation. So maintenance definitely is in the mix. The funding piece, RAT grants, we've gotten chunks of money from the RAT grants. The region 5 put out some proposals for fuels, and we got some of that 2 years ago, I think, towards us. So it's been wherever we can find some funding. And Kevin mentioned a little bit about the NEPA, on the NEPA side of things, that's coming up on our, and I'll mention it during my talk, but we're looking to the tribe for some help because we're not very deep in terms of our staff, and so we don't. Just to give you an example, the forest only has 1 soil scientist, 1 geologist. A couple other areas are similar, and just recently our geologist is leaving, so that puts changes plans midstream on it. So it's got to try to figure out some ways to be creative.
So you guys also do, what is it called, the project of work? You guys do like so many projects, and you guys list your top 5 projects, and then, right?
A priority program of work.
So then it's ranking of those projects as well. So, you know, it's competitive.
There's a question over here, but I didn't see the hand. Oh, there it is. I was looking in the chairs.
Outside the purview of the camera. Good afternoon. My question relates to possibly if you could provide a time estimate on the commitment side of the Forest Service and Six Rivers as far as how much time they possibly put in, maybe monthly, annually, to work with you on this TFPA project?
I couldn't give you a time limit on that because it would be, I guess it would be both ways. It's the amount of time the tribe's putting it and them, and it's like I said, the tribe has a lot of projects, and I know the Forest Service does. So we meet probably at the minimum twice annually. And that would be with probably the forest supervisor, the district ranger, but then we meet, as far as implementation portion of it goes, myself and Andrew, we probably meet 4 or 5 times, if not more. If I have a portion of it that he needs to come up and inspect that's been completed, then we'll meet even more then. So percentage-wise, maybe 10% annually. I mean, it's, like I said, it's, the funding is limited, so we don't get up there and do that much of the project. So we're probably knocking off at the most, maybe 25 acres a year at the very most right now, currently. And that's just due to funding and due to the NEPA constraints. So you can only, right now, we're just being able to do the light hand on the land. That's the way I look at it.
And Kevin, the funding available for this project is also connected to just the wilderness designation and the limitations in getting to the project, similar to, I think, what Laura mentioned, that hike out there, which reduces the amount of time you can actually have people working and increases the cost.
Well, I guess it's more than 10% because our crews go out there and they do the actual work. So I believe I scheduled them this year for a month. So that's 20 work days for them.
And then I had just one more portion of that question, I'm sorry. Because it ties into, how much time would you estimate potentially goes into funding, acquisition, and collaboration on funding for maybe future projects in your consultation process or collaboration with Six Rivers?
Want to answer that, Deeds? Darren or Nolan can answer that. Darren can answer it on our end.
In terms of like just allocated time towards seeking funding, we have a weekly meeting, and I know this kind of sounds weird, but this topic comes up almost once every 2 weeks for us in terms of the stewardship and what we're going to do and who we're going to meet with and how we do this or how we do that. So it kind of involves quite a bit of time for the tribe's staff, the entire staff, not just myself and Kevin. There's 3 other fellows that discuss this with us, so it's kind of hard to quantify, honestly. I apologize, I can't give you a definitive answer, but we talk about it a lot.
Any other questions for Kevin, with the caveat that Nolan will also be providing additional details? More so than you already have.
So hammer him.
And then he'll defer to you.
I'm gonna ask a bunch of questions when he's. Thank you.